Hi folks, welcome back to Stacey Can. Today I'm making beef and wine sauce. This is a great item to have in your pantry. It's a quick, easy meal. You just open it up and heat it up, put it in the over your favorite starch like pasta or rice or potatoes. At that point, after canning, you can add a little bit of a thickener with flour or cornstarch, making a roux by mixing water with either of those two. But you cannot add the flour or cornstarch prior to canning, while you're canning. It's unsafe canning practices to do so. So don't add the flour then or the cornstarch when you're canning it. The ingredients you're going to need for this are a tablespoon of vegetable oil, which I actually have olive oil here. I'll be using that instead of vegetable oil because that's what I prefer. You want to use a bare minimum amount only if necessary. The reason for that is fat has a tendency to really boil up on the inside of the jars and then spew out over the rim, and that can impact the sealing of the jar itself. That fat will get in between the rim and the lid, and it won't be able to seal. So you really want to make sure you use as little of this as possible. It's just because we're going to be browning the beef. So and it's just to make sure it doesn't stick to the pan as you're browning it. So use just the bare minimum amount for that. And we're going to be cutting up, so that's the vegetable oil, and then we have 2 pounds of boneless round steak, which we're going to cut up into 1-inch cubes. I've got a cup of an apple that we're going to grate and core, but we'll leave it unpeeled. I use a cup of carrots that I'm going to be grating and peeling and grating. A cup of, or 3/4 of a cup of sliced onion. I've already sliced it. I didn't figure you need to watch me slicing an onion, but I've done other videos where I've sliced onion. So just 3/4 of a cup of sliced onion, half a cup of water. I'm reading my little thing here. A half a cup of red wine, dry red wine. Now, I went and asked my local grocer at my local grocery store, in the wine department, which wine they recommended. And this is, I think it's an $8-9 bottle of wine. I don't like to use total bottom shelf because even though this is a really great wine, it's good, and it's $8 to $9, so that's about a good price point for me. Anything less than that sometimes can really taste bitter. I don't like the flavor for cooking. But if you do, then you can use whatever kind of wine. You can use an expensive wine if you want. It's up to you. A teaspoon of salt. It doesn't really matter what kind. You can use a table salt if you want. I have it sitting here. I'll probably use, actually kosher salt is what I prefer. This has iodine in it, and I prefer to just not can with iodized salt. And then 2 garlic cloves that we will mince. We've got 2 bouillon cubes. This is actually, it's called Better Than Bouillon, and it's a roast beef base. And I actually like this a lot. 1 teaspoon equals 1 bouillon cube. So I'll use a couple teaspoons of this. It's really great quality. That's why I like to. They have it for chicken and vegetable base as well. It's great seasoning for cooking. And then 2 bay leaves, and then also what's called kitchen bouquet, but it's got a half a teaspoon of browning and seasoning sauce. So that is what we're going to use here. You can make your own browning seasoning sauce. You can possibly even omit this if you want, and you can use like Worcestershire or your favorite kind of like a seasoning sauce. You don't need a lot, but it's a handy thing to have in your pantry. The tools, definitely need some knives. We do need a grater, which I have over here. Need some measuring spoons. You need your rings and your lids. We do need a stock pot that we're going to be frying up the beef in and cooking. We have to simmer all of this for about an hour to soften, to really tenderize the beef. You need obviously your pressure canner and your jars. We're definitely going to need some vinegar. I will be using vinegar to clean the rims. For making sure they're nice and clean prior to canning, to just get all the fat off of the rim there. Plus I'll put some of vinegar in the canner itself, so it doesn't stink too much when you're all done. We're gonna need our jar lifter, our Headspace tool. We're doing a 1-inch Headspace today. Definitely need a chopstick. We're bubbling. The ladle, I do have a ruler here. I always kind of like to measure how much water I put in the canner. So we're gonna need 2 to 3, maybe 4 inches. I gotta double check that, I'll let you know, of water in there for pressure canning. And then also a ladle, I'm using this, not ladle, funnel. I'm using this funnel because it's already has a 1 inch measurement headspace for that. So I like to use this one when I'm doing 1 inch headspaces. Now I'm not using my lid lifter today because I am not heating the lids for that. So with all of that, let's go ahead and get started. One thing to note is that this recipe apparently makes about a quart or three pints. I'm doubling this, possibly a little bit more. I've got 5 pounds of beef here. So I'm gonna be doubling and a little bit more of that. So my measurements are gonna be a little bit more, but I'll walk you through as we go for just the single batch. So the first thing I'm gonna do is we're gonna cut up this round, and you'll notice that there's quite a bit of fat on here. I am gonna cut some of that off just because it does make it, I just don't want a big fatty portion on there because the fat does stick, it just impedes canning. So I'm gonna cut some of it off as much as I can. So I've got most of the fat cut off, and now I'm just cutting it up. Just gonna do some slices and then hunks of, in 1 inch hunks. The slices are about 1 inch thick. Got my slices, and now we're just gonna cut them up into 1 inch pieces, bite-sized pieces like so. Now I'm gonna add just a little bit of oil, just a little bit, just to kind of get the pan heated up. And we'll spin it around just a little bit there. And then we're gonna brown the beef. There's a reason why we're using 2 separate pans. You see all this liquid in here? That's actually a great deal of fat. So it's nice to brown it ahead of time before putting it in the pot you're gonna do a long cook with. It just kind of helps eliminate some of the fat that can help, inhibit your jar sealing. Peeling some carrots now, and to get them prepped for grating. I'm gonna go ahead and grate some carrots. We need a cup of them. Now we're gonna cut and core the apple, but we're not peeling it, and we're getting a cup of it. Now I'm gonna mince some garlic. I got this store-bought already peeled garlic a bit ago, so I'm using it up, and that's what I'm using here. So just mince your garlic. I got all the beef into my pot here, and we're gonna bring in the half a cup of apple. But remember, I am doubling this, so I actually put in a cup, and then 2 cups. 2 cups of apples. I did 2 cups. So we need a cup of grated, cored, unpeeled apples, putting in our cup of carrots that have been peeled, putting in my 3/4 a cup of sliced onion, half a cup of water, half a cup of dry red wine, doing a teaspoon of salt, 2 cloves of garlic minced, 2 beef bouillon. So this is about a teaspoon equals 1 beef bouillon cube. And again, I'm doubling this, so I'm actually putting in 4. Adding our bay leaves and a half a teaspoon of the browning sauce. Again, I'm doing a full teaspoon. It's pretty thick. Now that we have it all combined into the pot here, oh my goodness, it smells delicious. I'm going to be just giving this a stir, and we're gonna bring it to a boil over medium-high heat. and stir it occasionally. Once it comes to a boil, we're gonna boil for about, I'd say an hour or so, just to get it until it's tender. And all of the kind of the flavors sort of meld together better. It doesn't say to cover it, but I am gonna cover it just to kind of keep it all intact. So this is boiled for about, on low, for about just under an hour, about 55 minutes or so. The sauce has thickened and the meat really has tenderized pretty well. I've also pulled out the four bay leaves. I'm not gonna can with those. They've served their purpose in my opinion. You can leave yours in if you want. And now we're gonna go ahead and start jarring everything up. So I've got my lids here, I've got my rings here, I've got my vinegar that I'm using, and we're just gonna start filling some jars. And I'd have the jars heating up in the canner here. They're nice and toasty, so we don't put a hot item into a cold jar. And we'll fill this up. We're doing a 1-inch headspace. And I do kind of overfill just a little bit. Yeah, because we definitely can add a little bit more meat into this. The house smells divine, by the way. Oh, it smells very good in here. So we got a 1-inch headspace there. I've got my vinegar. I'm just using straight vinegar and I'm cleaning the room very well. Taking my lid here, adding a ring. Be careful, this is hot. Just finger tight. Hoofda, that is very hot. And then just up and over and into the canner it goes. Do not tip or tilt, and repeat. One thing I did is I just added a little bit more beef bouillon to it, because it cooked off a lot of the sauce. And it wasn't gonna have enough sauce for this. So I did add just about, a cup or two of extra beef bouillon. Just took a couple of bouillon cubes. One bouillon is for 1 cup. So I went ahead and added some just to give it a little bit more liquid, because we definitely do need a little more liquid for these jars. I got the jars in the canner, so we're gonna go ahead and put the lid on. And I've got the heat up to high. And when we start getting a steady stream of steam here, I'll start setting the timer for 10 minutes. We got a steady stream of steam here, so I've set the timer for 10 minutes. 10-minute timer has gone off, so now we're gonna cover the vent pipe. And we're gonna watch the dial gauge. If you have a weighted gauge, you're gonna put on a 10-pound weight. With a dial gauge, we're gonna get it up to 11 pounds of pressure. So I'm at 11 pounds of pressure now. I'm actually a little over, but more on that in a second. So I'm at 11 pounds of pressure, and I've set the timer for 75 minutes, or an hour and 15 minutes. So I'm up to 11 pounds of pressure for my dial gauge. If you are using a weighted gauge, you would be at 10 pounds of pressure. So now this is for at my elevation, and you will notice that I'm actually a little over. I'm a little over, so I'm dropping the heat a little bit. My dial gauge, I just had it tested recently, and it needs to, at the extension office, so where it says 11 pounds of pressure, I actually need to have it at 12. So I'm at 12 pounds pressure, and I'm a little over it. I have a hard time with this part. If it's a little over 11, my canner, it's either a little over the number or a little under. I rarely ever hit it on the mark. So just remember, if you go over, it's fine, you can reduce the heat. But if you go under, you have to bring it back up to the pounds of pressure that you need to have it at, which is at 11, and then start the timer all over again. So I err to the side of just a snort over versus under. Now this is for my elevation. If you are, for a weighted gauge, you want to do 15, the little 15 weight on it for anything over 1,000 feet in elevation, 1,001 feet in elevation. For 1,000 to 2,000 feet, you would want to keep it still at 11 pounds of pressure. I'm going to have all this information down below, so just check it out there. The timer has gone off, so I'm going to go ahead and cut the heat. And when the gauge goes down to 0, we can take the steam, the cover off. The dial gauge has gone to 0, so we can go ahead and take the cover off of the vent pipe. And we're gonna set a timer for 10 minutes just so we can let the food in the jar settle in the canner before removing them out of the canner. The 10-minute timer has gone off, so we can go ahead and take the cover off, or the lid of the canner off. Just be careful when you open it that you open it away from your face. You do not want this type of a facial, steamy hot. And then we just carefully take them out of the canner. Make sure to just lift them straight up and out and over. Do not tip or tilt. We have one that's sealed. I think that looks great. And this is how we make beef in wine sauce. It's actually quite simple. It does take time, but pressure canning always takes time. If I had to do it again, I would even, quadruple the meat amount, probably do 2 full stock pots, because it really did say the original recipe that it does either 1 quart or 3 pints. That's pretty much what doubling it. I just got 6 pints out of it. But it tastes very good. I have some that I wasn't able to fit into a full, I fit half of a pint, and just stuck it in the refrigerator and just nibbled on it a little bit, and it's very tasty, very, very good. It'd be a great, like I said, a great addition to your pantry. So, well, the recipe for this is down below. And while you're down there, please like and subscribe. That does help. And if you have any questions, comments, suggestions, feedback, concerns, by all means, please reach out to me. I'm on Facebook at Stacey Can Can. You can at me on Instagram and TikTok at Stacey Can Can. My website is www.staceycancan.com, and my email is info@staceycancan.com. Thanks so much again for joining me today, and until next time, happy canning.